Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you have ever searched for information about Canada, you have probably heard the same thing over and over again. Canadians are so nice. And honestly, I agree. After living in Canada for almost 10 years, I would say well over 90% of the Canadians I have met have been kind, polite, patient, and willing to help. I have had neighbors shovel my driveway, bring over homemade desserts and welcome cards. Strangers hold doors open, and the cashiers apologize even when they weren't at fault. So yes, Canadians have absolutely earned that reputation. But today, I would like to share two experiences with the small percentage of people who weren't so friendly. This isn't meant to criticize Canadians as a whole. No country is perfect, and every country has all kinds of people. These are simply two personal experiences that stood out to me. The first story happened last summer. My family and I were driving along the highway when we spotted a local farmer's market. I always enjoy supporting local businesses, even though their produce usually costs more than what you would find at a supermarket. I'm happy to pay a little extra because I know I'm supporting local farmers. I picked up a basket of grapes and a box of peaches, then handed it to the cashier. A young woman looked at my grapes and said, "This basket looks too full. You will have to remove at least one bunch before I can check you out." I was completely confused. I hadn't added anything. I had simply picked up one basket from the display. So I calmly replied, "You can check your security camera. I didn't put any extra grapes in. I just took the basket from the shelf." She answered, "I'm not saying you did it, but people do that all the time." That sentence really stayed with me. She wasn't directly accusing me, but she had already assumed that I might be one of those people. What surprised me even more was that if she had simply looked at the display, she would have seen that every basket looked exactly the same. Instead, she insisted that I remove some grapes or she wouldn't complete the sale. At that point, I decided to walk away. It wasn't about one bunch of grapes. It was about being judged before anyone bothered to check the facts. Even today, it's probably the most unpleasant shopping experience I have had in Canada. My second story happened in my own neighborhood. When we first moved into our house, almost everyone on the street welcomed us. Some neighbors introduced themselves, some brought homemade cookies, and others left welcome cards in our mailbox. It made us feel like we had joined a wonderful community. There was one couple across the street, though, who kept completely to themselves. Even though I had given their dog several bags of treats and waved to them many times, they never greeted us or introduced themselves. That never bothered me. Not everyone wants to be friends with their neighbors, and that's perfectly okay. Then one summer afternoon, something unexpected happened. Their next-door neighbors, also my close friends, were on vacation in Europe, and they had asked me to keep an eye on their house while they were away. Earlier that day, I noticed several strangers walking onto their property. They weren't wearing company uniforms, and they didn't show any identification. Since the homeowners weren't there, I walked over and politely asked what they were doing. They said they were there to install internet service. I simply replied, "I'm sorry, but the homeowners are away right now. You will have to come back after they return." They didn't argue, they just left. About 30 minutes later, someone knocked loudly on my front door. When I opened it, a man immediately demanded, "Did you tell those internet people to leave?" At first, I didn't even recognize him. Then I realized he was the neighbor from across the street, the man I had never actually spoken to in more than 2 years. His internet wasn't working, and he believed I had caused the problem. I calmly explained that I was only looking after my friend's property while they were away. From my perspective, if unfamiliar people enter someone else's property without identification, it's reasonable to ask questions. To make sure I had done the right thing, I contacted another member of my friend's family who was still in Canada. They were just as confused as I was and had no idea why those workers were there. Eventually, everything was sorted out. The neighbor simply turned around and walked away. No apology, no thank you, nothing. As he was leaving, I smiled and said, "Nice to meet you." It was my way of pointing out the irony that after more than 2 years of living across the street from each other, our very first conversation happened because he came to criticize me. Looking back, I still don't regret what I did. If someone asks me to look after their home, I will take that responsibility seriously. I would rather ask questions first than ignore something suspicious and regret it later. When I first moved to Canada, I honestly expected every Canadian to be warm and friendly because that's the image you see everywhere online. But after living here for almost 10 years, I have realized something much more important. Canada isn't made up of stereotypes. It's made up of millions of individuals. Some people are incredibly kind, some are shy, some are having a bad day, and a few simply aren't pleasant. That's true everywhere in the world. The important thing is not to let one bad experience define an entire country. Imagine meeting one rude person from another country and deciding everyone there must be the same. That wouldn't be fair. The same applies to Canada. Overall, Canada has given me far more positive experiences than negative ones. The kindness I have received from neighbors, strangers, co-workers, and friends has far outweighed these two unpleasant encounters. These stories don't change how I feel about Canada. They simply remind me that kindness isn't determined by nationality. It's a personal choice. Now I would love to hear from you. If you have lived in Canada, have you ever had an unfriendly encounter? Or if you live somewhere else, are there stereotypes about your country that don't always match reality? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.